Welcome, everybody. This is Activities Across Grade Levels, and this week it's about engaging your math students. I hope you are excited about some cool math stuff because, as I like to tell my students once a semester, and I'm not a math teacher, there are two kinds of people in the world, those who understand math and those who are controlled by those who understand math. Try to be in the first group. So as we jump into this today, we've got some fun ideas for you with regard to what you can do with math activities and online learning, and I am excited for us to jump into this. Let's start with a few thank yous because that's the appropriate thing to do. Susan's group at Fowler Unified, good to have all of you here. Nice to have Central Valley representation, period. So you guys, you can do a little bit of this, right? Absolutely. The Jerome crowd, everybody up in that part of Idaho, it is good to have you with us. And as you know, all of those good folks at Summit Elementary and Jerome High School in Fall City, love you down here in California. Big thanks goes out to our buddy Richard Byrne, who does a fun podcast with me on Fridays, where we imaginatively called it Two Ed Tech Guys Take Questions and Share Cool Stuff. And so it is good fun, although we are quite serious about the professional nature of the ideas we share. And so if you're kind of curious, feel free to join in on that. And this Saturday, something new. We have a webinar focused on parents, particularly parents of elementary students. And if you are a parent of an elementary student and you're like, about distance learning and things like this, this would be a very good one for you to join. So we hope that you will take a look at that and sign up. It's like everything else we're doing, it's free. This is Save the World stuff. So make sure to not only join in, but let everybody know. All right. So we're going to say hello to all of you. We got some greetings to do. First of all, I want Susan to introduce herself.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Susan Stewart. I'm an instructional technology teacher on special assignment. Say that 10 times fast. I like to call myself a Tech Coach Susan, and I am from the Central Valley area. Before becoming a Tech Coach, I was a kindergarten and second grade teacher for 14 years, and now I get to serve 120 teachers in Fowler Unified School District.
All right, awesome. My name is Rushton. I'm a former high school teacher. I was a high school teacher of Japanese language, became a principal of a K-12 school, and then an online high school. And now I run a little nonprofit that I will certainly inflict ideas on you about soon enough. But we got a guest this week, and we're jazzed about it. Ed, let us know who you are.
Oh, hey, I thought do we have someone else coming in? Because I thought...
That'd be you.
Yeah. So my name's Ed. It's good to be here. Rushton, big fan of both Rushton and Susan. I'm a former high school math computer science teacher here in the Central Valley of California. I live in Tulare currently. I have a lot of jobs, like a pie chart. I call it my passion, pie chart of passion, being a math person. So a couple of my jobs are I work for Kings County Office of Education here in the Valley as a math computer science consultant for middle school, high school math teachers. And the other job is I work for Brown University's computer science department's bootstrap program, teaching teachers how to integrate computer science into their middle school and high school math classes. So I get to do a lot of fun stuff, and then I get to come on and hang out with two cool people like this. So.
Well, that's the thing. You see, so Ed is fun and cool. If he hadn't been, we wouldn't have invited him. So you know. All right. So with that, let me tell you a little bit about my nonprofit, the charitable baby I birthed, right? This is Next Vista for Learning. It's an online library of videos by and for teachers and students everywhere, free to use, free to contribute to, free to download from, all for a student audience, all screen content, my own little attempt to save the universe from ignorance, one creative video at a time. Thank you very much. Now, we have got videos about explaining different things in creative ways. We've got videos about communities around the world, about service to others, about careers, and we're trying to build the largest collection of free videos for English language learners anywhere on the planet, over 600 so far. If that's intriguing to you, let me know and we will talk more. The whole point of the webinars that Next Vista does is to keep the learning going. This is obviously a crazy time. We all know that this is stuff that we will be telling our children and grandchildren about, unless you're like me and my wife who prefer cats, but I mean, all good there. And what we want to do is we want to find ways that we can make this as engaging and as inspirational even as possible for our students, right? Because you may have students who weren't doing all that hot before shelter in place started. And now you've really got a chance to catch them in kind of a different setting. And this may be an opportunity to get them connected to possibilities that they weren't feeling in a traditional classroom. Never mind, you know, the extensive possibilities related to just keeping everybody else going. There are lots of reasons for us to make this work. Now, how will this webinar work? This webinar will work this way. We are going to go through 4 groups of students. We got our young learners, we got our upper elementary, we got our middle, we got our high school, and we're going to talk about different math activities at each level. But of course, all of the different things we talk about are things that you might apply and adapt so that you can use with your group. Doesn't matter, just jump in, and if you got questions, feel free to toss things into the chat. We will be very happy to address them. So as we often do, let's start with our young learners, and Susan, I'm gonna hand it over to you for that.
Awesome. So yeah, so this young learner crowd, it really is about developing some of those, like the concept of a number, right? Understanding that we can count things. It's this transition that happens between the concrete things in their hands and getting them to interact with them live. That's concrete understanding. And we make that transition along the way where they start moving manipulatives, things that represent concrete items. And then they start making, you know, pictorial representations where it's drawing a picture of those things. And then once they have that conceptual understanding, we can start talking about those abstract symbols called numbers and what they actually mean. Young learners really need to have opportunities to just count and touch and sort things out. So one thing we want to do is make sure that we give them those opportunities. Virtual manipulatives. Right now, since we're doing distance learning and remote learning, we want to make sure that they still have opportunities to touch things physically too. I love activities that have kids using their things in their home. Maybe it's their Legos, their race cars, whatever they have. Maybe it's spoons out of the drawer, right? To count and do that. So parents can use virtual manipulatives, but also I think right now we could take advantage of the environment they're in, the things they have, to help students model and interact, right? Build the foundations and conceptual understanding. Because I think that's one of the big foundations that misses sometimes. Oftentimes teachers will jump straight to the procedures, the algorithms, and don't take the time to play the games and do the counting and the touching and manipulating to really build those conceptual foundations. One of my favorite places is the Math Learning Center. It's a website that has online math manipulatives. But also, I really love WODB. It stands for Which One Doesn't Belong. We'll look at an example of that in just a moment. But WODB.ca has a wide variety of these kind of fun little math questions that we'll explore in just a second. But then again, any opportunity we could take that and pair something like WODB that you'll see in a second with another tool like Seesaw or Flipgrid that allows kids to explain what they see. So we can have this conversation about math. So if you want to go ahead and turn the page, Rushton, what I have here is actually a big app smash of all those things. So in the middle is a WODB example. So they give us lots and lots of examples that we can use this way on the website. And it is this picture. I see 4 items there. I notice in the upper left-hand corner that one is red, one has 3, one is solid, one is shaped different. And the question we ask of the students, I happen to use the tool Jamboard to have the students answer that question live and interactively. They got to vote which one they think didn't belong. But more importantly, they had the opportunity to explain their why, right? We want to just not, I think this one doesn't belong, but this one, oh, because it has 3, or because it is red and the others are green. So this really great live interactive, not just giving the answer, but giving their explanation. Because we know that one of the math practice standards is for students to construct viable arguments, right? We want them to explain their why here and their thinking. So I love smashing together a bunch of fun tools, interactive, creative ways to show their math out loud. We can go and continue on to some slightly older kids with the upper elementary kids. And, you know, as we get a little bit further, again, hopefully the conceptual foundation has been built, and we want to continue to evolve that. So anytime the Math Learning Center, once again, I don't let that one go. So many great online free math manipulatives there. But then we can smash that up even further. We can take something like Screencastify or any other screen recording tool and have students make their own Khan Academy style videos. Like anytime they want to teach another student something, what a great way to show your understanding. Then, like, there's no better way than having to teach someone else. So if we can have kids engage with those math manipulatives and then record their learning, it really is that highest level, being able to teach someone. And then of course, when we smash together multiple digital tools, I'll have you turn the page, Rushton, and show a live example of this. So in this example, before Rushton hits play, it is one of those very manipulatives I mentioned back from the Math Learning Center. Students made a model of a math concept. Let's let Eden explain it for us.
You can use the property that 6 times 4 can equal 24, and 4 times 6 can equal 24. The commutative property shows that you can change these factors and still get the same product.
So here I have a third grader, and he's saying the commutative property shows that you can change the factors and still get the the same product. Like, he's using this rich math vocabulary, and we're able to see his thinking, because we all know that 6 times 4 and 4 times 6 are the same thing. But could you really explain that in a picture representation? So he was able to use the number tool, smashed it with Seesaw, and really use that rich, like, so much captured in one small activity there, bringing all those interactive tools together. So lots of great ways for kids to show what they know.
Let's move it up to the middle school group and talk a little bit about ways that we can get them engaged and how they deal with their math as well. So I'm going to describe one and then hand it over to our way cool guest. But one comes down to using videos in places like Khan Academy. And you're like, wait a minute, you got to be kidding. You're taking time to suggest Khan Academy? Everybody knows about Khan Academy. Yeah, but here's the thing. When you have a kid watch a video on Khan Academy, everybody's kind of in that mode of, okay, the video explains it to the kid. Let's take that up a notch. Instead, why don't we have kids watch a video from Khan Academy or anywhere else that has math videos? And their job is actually to watch it carefully and say, you know, if someone didn't understand this piece, they would screw this problem up. So what we're trying to do is get them to really look at what are the underlying pieces for these different conceptual problems that we've got them working with. Can they look at those and begin to think, you know, this is the kind of thing people mess up. This is the kind of thing people mess up. They might not remember that you could have 0 in the denominator. It could be anything. But something that allows a kid to begin saying, this messes this up. In a discussion, you're likely to get kids who will say things like, wait, that's a problem? That's a chance to catch them when they're encountering one of their gaps. And that's what we do. We fill in gaps as they build and build and build their understanding of math. So that is one way to use math videos that are out there that maybe you haven't used before. Ed, talk to us about clothesline math.
Yeah, Rushton. So I've taught high school math my whole career, but I've really had the chance to work with middle school teachers a lot this last year with my first year at the county office. And the focus is on ratio and proportions, right? That's where the needs are before they get into understanding linear equations, direct variation, things like that. And with the clothesline math, if you've never seen this, and if you've never just understood positive and negative integers, like this is where you need to go. This should be in every classroom. It's the master sense maker is what they call it, right? It's physical. It's exactly what Susan was talking about. It's concrete. It's the tactile. Kids are moving around the numbers. We're not jumping to any, formulas or anything right away. It's visual, dynamic, student-centered. So I've seen some where you have one clothesline math up in front of the classroom, but I'm a big fan of just like we did right here. I've done this in some PD. 3 kids, 2 are holding the number line. 1 is placing and spacing, developing that conceptual understanding and fluency. And what that placing and spacing means is, right, like you may understand that if you have a benchmark 0 and 1, that 1/8 goes in between 0 and 1, right? You're going to understand that. Kids are going to put that in the middle, but then the next kid gets a chance to come in and say, well, yeah, I believe it's in the middle, but I don't think it's that's 1/2 that's in the middle. I need to slide this thing down. And because it's just a little number 10 that's on there, they get to kind of slide it down. And then if they get equivalent fractions, they paper clip them on. So you have this really long, cool paper clipped idea of equivalent fractions going down there. So it's just a beautiful thing to have up all year long in your classroom. And if you go to the next slide, moving into proportions, right? So that's just number sense with positive and negative integers. We talk about fractions, we talk about decimals. You can have different representations of fractions, decimals, and other different forms of the numbers on equivalence. But then when you go into ratio and proportions, you can have 2 of those clotheslines and then show your ratios and proportions. You can work out number problems, the word problems about ratios and proportions where you're dealing with recipes and scaling up, trying to feed, your family for the quinceañera or whatever you got going on. So and the failure is cheap. I like to use my friend Matt Vaudry's phrase, like you make failure cheap because failure has been really expensive in math class. There's been too much anxiety, especially as it gets in the older grades. Like, we're getting away from that play stuff and we don't need to get away from that playing, right? We need to keep that in there But because it's like focused on the test, give me the answer right away like that. We know that that's not, if we're believers in Joe Bowler and we're all believers, we know that that's not true. We need to start with the visual at all costs if we can start with the visual. So it's very flexible. I love the number line, the double number lines. It's just pretty. I mean, it needs to be everywhere. And I started thinking about like, how is this going to happen virtually now that we're distance learning, right? So how does that transition to what we're doing now? And I think there's a couple of options, right? I believe I have this here. The next slide. Oh, no, go back to this one. So I forgot to put it in there, but how would we do this virtually? Well, you know, we can't ship every kid like, you know, some thread and some, you know, Post-its or something like that. You know, but at the very least, maybe the teacher could have this set and there could be Flipgrid responses about that. Or, you know, the teacher could diagram this in an image and then give it to them maybe in Jamboard or something like that. Like, you know, Jamboard's just pretty amazing. You can have the Post-its and have your number line along each Jamboard and have kids placing and spacing there. And then screencasting that with Flipgrid and having kids turn in that stuff. So I think there's really potential too for that single number line. You know, just turn this into an image and have, you know, your draggable Post-it type number tents on Jamboard. I think there's a lot of potential there.
Absolutely. So, I can imagine like in the setup you've got right now, you've got a lot of space behind you that the camera is catching. And you could set something up and you could be like, all right, guys, and you bring like the particular thing you want to show them, like, all right, this right here, right? And so then you go to one side and you're like, all right, sing out to me when I need to stop. And you want that there. Boom, everybody. All right, we got it. And in those kinds of moments where you're really engaging the kids, you know, and they're telling you what's going on, those can be really cool moments for kids.
And I think what I would do, I was thinking about this, like giving them like a couple of days to chew on it and have it moderated Flipgrid so I see where they're at. And I don't let them see all of those and then unlock them so that they see, oh, I didn't even think about like that should have been spaced over here. Because really the spacing is the challenge right there. Kids most of the time get, you know, I mean most of the time, but most of the time they understand like it should go here, but it's that spacing where the rich discussion happens. And I think if that can be the thing that happens, you know, at the aha moment with, you know, unmoderating something, or when you do have your Google Meet synchronous time or your Zoom time, I think that's really powerful. So,
and if they understand that spacing, they're much less likely to be thrown off by bad statistics and manipulated graphs, right? So very cool. Cool.
Now, high school, I'm going to admit, high school, we're a different animal, Rushton. I'm going to say that, right? I'm going to own my people. Because, you know, I've grown up indoctrinated into this, you know, very routine, procedure-based math. I got my degree in it, you know, so I really had to unlearn a whole lot of stuff, you know, with my maths Khaleesi Joe Bowler, freeing my mind, you know what I mean, with her maths dragons, just like scorching the earth like she's doing right now. With my other, I'm going to call her my, what is her name from? The daughter on Game of Thrones, Arya Stark. I'm gonna call Fawn Wynn my Arya Stark. You know, she's the savage, the one who actually kills the Night King. You know, spoiler alert for you guys right there. But so for me, it's a tough thing to get into a high school classroom and open this up and revert and undo all of that stuff. So, but the easiest thing for me has been like if you can see in my office right here, I have a bit of a whiteboard problem. Like, I put whiteboard surfaces on everything, right? And I mean, I have like the white books all up around, pretty affordable dry erase company. But when I was in the classroom, I ended up being fortunate enough to contribute to a grant where I had idea paint and painted my classroom walls, floor to ceiling. And it was by far the biggest game changer. It was easy for me as a teacher who was actually like indoctrinated into that lockstep, I do, you do, we do stuff, just, you know, do 1 through 55 odd, to just at least get my kids up doing stuff and being able to make the thinking visible all around, you know, for me to be able to check for understanding, but really for them to be able to see and kind of get like a little jump start, kick start, like, oh, I see, because kids want to learn. Kids want to learn, they want to understand stuff, right? We have to understand the human brain wants to understand stuff. The human brain is social. So if we give them the space for them to socialize and work these ideas and chew on this stuff together, they can do this. So my classroom experience has been really impacted by this guy named Peter Liljedahl. up in Canada. He's a higher education guy. He's done a lot of research on this thing called the thinking classroom for problem solving. And it's really, there's quite a few elements here. I believe there's like 11 elements here. I'm not too bright to follow all those 11 minutes, so I'm going to really simplify it down to like the 2 or 3 things, right? So this is a beautiful sketch note by Laura Wheeler that sketch noted all the little tenets of the thinking classroom. But if you move forward, really what it is it's about vertical non-permanent surfaces, which is a very technical way of saying put whiteboards on the wall everywhere, right? So what Peter has done is said that he's done the research on whiteboard surfaces everywhere, on the desks, on the walls. On the desks is good, on the walls is better. It just allows everything to be more visible. He has all these metrics on time to task, amount of questions asked. Like there's so much goodness there, so many nuggets there in Peter's research, and you can tell. So when I first started, I was just doing the regular stuff, and then I started adapting some of his little tenets here. So I on the next one, you'll go, there's another characteristic of his research called the visible random groups, because kids and adults are going to get complacent if they're in the same group, right? You know this, we know this. If I sit at my table with my same group of friends, we're not going to be very good throughout the whole PD, right? And if you switch me up, something's going on in my mind, or something's going on in a kid's mind that says, wait a minute, you put me at this table, you put me so-and-so, like I'm that kid or something like that. There's a lot of weird stuff. So it's about making the grouping visible, making it random. So it's like, hey, I didn't do it. This software did it, you know? You make it visible. You assign one person in a group of 3 with a marker to do the work, because that promotes discourse. And usually if you give the kid with the marker who's not used to talking, and you take the marker away from the kid who is used to talking, what is that kid then forced to do? It's really uncomfortable for them, but now they have to become the teacher, and they have to pull that reasoning out and lead. And it's really just a lot of magic that happens just within that. So if you go to the next one, how do we do this with distance learning, right? I mean, for me, you have to provide a space for them to talk. This cannot happen asynchronously. I'm going to say that, right? Because this stuff, one of the key pieces, you have to give kids a rich task to chew on, and the chew on and the processing takes place together. So it either takes place like in a breakout room, right? In a breakout room, but with the surfaces, we've got like Equatio Math Space, which is the most robust whiteboard, like just on the market. It's got Desmos integration. You can do speech to text. It's got existing math manipulatives, ratio tables, number lines, all these volume, geometric solids. But you can use that into Jamboard, right? And copy and paste any of those images that you set the table with into Jamboard to annotate over that. And then you have your Jamboard up to 20, right, Susan? Is it 20 slides, 20 charts, whatever it is, 20 jams?
20 frames.
20 frames, there you go. You have 20 frames, so you got 3 kids there, right? That's 60 kids. So I don't know about you guys' classes, but I mean, we can get up to 60 kids there. So that's gonna fit your vertical non-permanent surfaces. If you go to the next one, so how do we do the visible random groups, right? Well, breakout rooms do it nicely, right? If not, because breakout rooms are random, or at least, you have to trust the person that's doing it. If not, if you're doing Google Meet, then you use something like Flippity, and then you just randomize them, and you're like, this is your teams. And then maybe you have separate Google Meets, but that's also like, if we're talking about high school, depending on whether or not, this is all depending on whether or not your school is allowing, students to be in different rooms, so that's a whole different ballgame. But use the Jamboard. And what I like to do is assign roles. Like specifically if I'm talking about Zoom, you assign a role of a kid. Like I said, the first kid shares the screen and annotates. So it's like them having the marker. That's the equivalent, right? The second person is like the facilitator. Just make sure that the participation is equitable. And then the third person, I really like this idea. The third person has to come back and present it out. And if it's in a Jamboard, they present it out. Or if it's like, even if it's just written in a slide, you can turn that into like an Ignite talk if you auto time the slide like with 1 minute. Like, and I love that thing. I mean, it's not you necessarily have the visuals, but if you copy and paste that image into a slide, that's a rapid pace Ignite for a 1-minute summary of the student's work, right? And if you can get them used to that, because we may be doing this for a while. So might as well get them into some really cool routines that they're going to have going forward, right?
Absolutely. And to whatever extent you can get kids talking about their thought processes as they record themselves going through them. So like you're working your way through a problem on Jamboard or any other whiteboard system. You're saying, I'm doing this for this reason. You get kids in that mode where they're doing that maybe they're creating it using Screencastify. Maybe they're bringing it in, via another tool, but Flipgrid, right? If they're explaining what they're thinking, you're going to figure out where their gaps are more quickly. And that's where the efficiency comes in with moving kids as fast as we can. Now, we always kind of get to a certain point in our webinars, and we just got some resources for you. And we got a whole heap of them, some of which we've already mentioned here along the way. But there are a couple others here that we want you to know about. So Flippity is a great tool for sharing a few things. Susan, tell a little bit about Flippity. And you're muted.
So Flippity is awesome because it goes in the power of the spreadsheet, right? If you love spreadsheets, there's a lot going on. But at Flippity, you can do some of those randomizing, but there's a lot of other things there too, where kids can be creators of games using just math-based decisions. Like I love Flippity just for the random things. That's my favorite use of Flippity, but there are all these student-created games, activities, interactives, ways that they can engage with each other, like Jeopardy type quiz show games, but it's all founded in spreadsheets. And some people think that spreadsheets are scary, but really there's so much Flippity magic in those spreadsheets and the scripts that are run there to create that. Can I add one that's not on that list real quick that I just discovered?
Add it in the chat. While you're doing that, we'll come back to you. I'm going to have Ed tell a little bit about visual patterns.
Do it.
Oh yeah, so visual patterns is from the Arya Stark of math, or the Lauryn Hill of math. I'm just going to say she's actually the Lauryn Hill of math. But Fawn has visual patterns there of just shapes, a sequence of shapes, and it's really about describing where do you see the growth, where do you see the pattern, how many is it growing by, how many snowflakes is it growing by, how many penguins is it growing by, where do you see the penguins growing by, and it's really just a low floor, high ceiling into functions, into linear, quadratic, exponential. It's a beautifully visual site that this does not look like the math that I grew up with, and that's a problem. Because this should be where we start to know what linear growth looks like, to know what quadratic looks like. And every kid can see can draw how many puppies they're going to be in that fifth step. And every kid can make some guesses there. And then we get to the tables and the function and the rule way later, but giving these kids a chance to chew on, even just as a warm-up. You can do this from middle school, even upper elementary school kids can do this stuff right here too, right? To just draw pictures and notice a pattern. So it's and the thing I love about, Fawn, she's at giving the answer now. That's not good. She used to not give the answer on the website and force people to find the answer, but I think.
But you look at this, right?
Yeah.
And matter of fact, this first one is a beautifully tricky one, right? Where it's like, okay, so you got a square, then you got 4 squares, then you got 9 squares. It's like, no, you got 1 square and then 5 squares. And then you've got, say, 9 and 4 and 5, so you got 14. Yeah. I mean, you got to start figuring those out. And how what's the relationship? Can you come up with a formula that allows you to understand how many toothpicks are going to be in these squares, right? That's some higher level math. Even if you're looking at it with say, okay, well, step 43 is 1,849 squares, but does my formula get me there? And man, when kids nail something like that, they're excited.
And then you have kids create their own visual pattern. Make a visual pattern. How many Tiger Kings are going to be in the 6th step? That's, and they get to use it in Jamboard, and every Jamboard frame has a different visual pattern that's co-created by 2 kids. That's what we want, right?
Absolutely. What we want is for kids to be engaged and curious. When we think about math, right? Math is very much kind of the language of the way the world works. And so getting kids in this space where they're really getting curious about the stuff we put in front of them, there's so many good sites out there. This gives you a good start. I hope that you'll get this in front of your kids and get their thoughts. Ask your kids, what do you think of this? Is this too easy? Is this too hard? Is there something about it that makes it look easy, but it isn't? How would you explain those things? Those are our opportunities, because what we do when we're caring for our students and their learning is we're getting them intrigued. And I think that's where we have a special opportunity with online learning to begin saying, hey, we're all in this kind of new space together. Tell me what's standing out for you. How would we make this cool? And of course, to do that well, we need to be caring for ourselves. We need to be engaged in cool discussions with our colleagues in different places, and beginning to say, like, what's working for you? You know, what do you think? You know, have you asked students about X or Y or Z? What did they think? Oh, I had this one kid make this amazing suggestion. Those are the things that energize us. If we just spend our time just checking off, yes, the kid got this right answer. Yes, the kid got that right answer. And we're going to be exhausted fast and not particularly inspired. So let's take care of ourselves by engaging in those better conversations. As we wind down, so you know, nextvista.org is a space I'd love for you to go check out. I put out a monthly newsletter, just the May one in the chute just a couple of days ago. Hope that you'll find lots of cool things to enjoy with that one. We have video contests where we ask kids to creatively explain things they might encounter in school, or tell about people who make the lives of others better, as organizations and people in their community who spend a little time just doing for others, and that is something that they find a lot of joy and meaning out of. I write a blog at rushton.com called Inspiring Improvement. And if you ever thought, I want to help my team get better, I'd love to talk to you and read a little bit about the stuff that you got there, because you'll find that there are plenty of ideas to be shared. I've written a couple of books on this front, on getting to be a better teacher and helping make your school a better place for everybody. And just recently from NCEA, a new book called Technology, Teamwork, and Excellence, which is designed to help leaders use tech to make everything a little bit more personally and professionally satisfying for the teams they work with. So if you got questions, we're going to be happy to sit around and answer them. This is how this works. We're going to finish up the recording in just a minute. But those of you who joined, you're going to be able to be like, hey, I got this issue right here. I just want to put it in front of 3 people and see what they come back with. We'll do it. We'll do it. That is why we're here. But let's properly say goodbye before we stop the recording. Ed, if you want to just say where people can find you, that would be awesome.
Yeah, you guys, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. It's the same for both, at Ed Campos Jr. And apparently I have a TikTok now, because that's a thing, and trying to learn about that thing. Same thing at Ed Campos Jr. And then on Facebook, Eddie Campos Jr. Just look for that cartoon avatar right there that my student drew of me a while back. My student Adi Aguilar drew. So I look forward to hanging out and helping out. We love to give lifetime customer support. It's kind of the way we are, CBQ, Q type of stuff. So
very cool. Susan.
Yeah, I'm Tech Coach Susan. You can find me on the internet at Tech Coach Susan. And I also share a lot of things under the hashtag K2CAN2, because it's all about empowering those young learners and talking about what they can do. So yeah, find me on the Twitter and other social media at Tech Coach Susan.
And my name is Rushton. You can find me on Twitter at RushtonH, RushTonH. And you can find my little attempt to save the world at nextvista.org. I hope you'll take a look at the many webinars we're doing, including that parent one coming up on Saturday, because we're really excited about that. And we thank you very much for going to the trouble of spending time with us, because one of the things that I think is really, really important about what we do is that we find ways to get inspired. And if you're getting a little bit of that, let me know. You're going to get an email from me very soon that just says, hey, here are the links, here are the slides, and I would love to get your feedback on anything we're doing. We hope to see you again next week.